Hey, it's Aaliyah with Daily Conversations, and I am back with another conversation. Daily Conversations is all about highlighting people's stories, their why, their impact, because I just think that it's important, especially as an educator, a homeschooling mom, and someone, who is in education and trying to figure out my own path, to make sure that people understand that it's not easy out here. Okay. It is very hard to put the work in to create the life that you want to help your community. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're creative, like you have a community of people out here that are doing the same things as you. And I want to highlight those people so that we can inspire and educate you to do the same. So today I have a special guest with me. I would love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, tell us something interesting about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, hi. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Jill Haskins, and I live in Fort Wayne, Indiana, so up in Northeast Indiana, where Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana meet. Something interesting about myself, I always hate that question. I don't feel like I'm that interesting. I'm sure I can find something. I don't know. When I was 16, I was pretty naughty, and my parents shipped me off to Zimbabwe on a mission. And so that trip kind of changed my life and set the course for the rest of where I'm at. So maybe that's something interesting.
That
Um,
is very interesting.
yeah. Yeah, it was a life-changing experience for me working at an orphanage with children with AIDS, and it's super interesting and heartbreaking all at the same time. And it definitely did change the course of my life. So um, I have way too many jobs. I am the director of Microschool Outreach for the National Microschooling Center. I'm also the owner and founder and director of Kainos Microschool, which is a microschool serving 5th through 12th grade students. And then I am also the founder of the Indiana Microschool Network. So I do a lot of work in the microschooling and non-traditional education space, both nationally, statewide, and then locally here in my community.
First of all, that was very interesting, your Zimbabwe story, and like you said, it changed your life. And so I would love to know, how did you get into education and starting your own micro school, but also like being a founder of a micro school institution? Is that what you said?
Yeah, network. Yep. Yeah.
Work.
Yeah. From the time that I was a little girl, I always wanted to be a teacher. I used to sit my brother down in our basement, and he would always be the bad student. And so I would give him worksheets that I would make, and I'd write his name on the chalkboard with check marks behind it. And that was like the funnest thing ever. I'd make him play school with me forever and ever and ever. And I always just had a desire to become a teacher. So when I went to college, obviously that was kind of the natural path for me. I've always loved working with children, especially for whatever reason, children with special needs have always been my just something that I love. They have a tender place in my heart. So that was kind of ever since a little girl, that's what I wanted to do. I had always, growing up in the Chicago area, I had always wanted to work in a school district that had lots of diversity. And so when my husband and I were married, Fort Wayne is the second biggest city in Indiana. And so I got my teaching license and began teaching in Fort Wayne community schools, and very quickly learned that that was not the life that I wanted. We started having our own kids and spending more time with other people's children than my own children, and that was just not something that I was super interested in. It was also when the economy tanked in 2009, so I was on a temporary contract and super hard to find a position then. Since I wasn't a contracted teacher, I was having a hard time finding a job, even though I had interviewed 30, 60 times, that summer. So then pretty much became a stay-at-home mom. I had always said that I was never, ever, ever, ever going to homeschool. And I think maybe God was on his throne laughing at that one. Because when we say that we're never going to do something, I think he's like, ha, watch that.
That's very
Um, Yep. So, my two oldest kids were actually in public school for just a couple years. My husband works retail, And he was working nights and weekends when my kids were home from school. And so very quickly we realized that the schedule that we were on just wasn't favorable for a healthy family life. Our kids never got to see their dad. I was parenting alone. And so we decided to make the leap into homeschooling. And I homeschooled our kids for about 6.5, 7 years. And when my youngest son, who had never been in public school, turned 7, I very quickly realized, oh, this kid learns differently. My other two, I was like, yes, I'm the best parent ever. And then my youngest came along and I went, oh, I'm not as great of a parent and a homeschool mom as I thought I was. So we decided to start looking for other options for him, but also my husband was still working retail, and so traditional hours and a traditional setting just wasn't going to be what we needed. And so I found a woman who had been quote unquote homeschooling other people's children out of her home for like 30 years, and we enrolled him there while I continued to homeschool my oldest too. And he began making some progress. But I really was kind of intrigued with the model. And then COVID hit and brought him home and started homeschooling again. And I went, oh, nope. So during that time, she had basically picked up what she was doing and moved it over to her church. And the church had then started a school. And after homeschooling my youngest, along with the two older for a few months during COVID, I went, I'm going to call her up. And so I did. And I asked if she would have room for him and also if they were looking for another teacher because I'd be interested. And so that was kind of how I got involved in the microschooling world. I started as a full-time teacher then in March of 21, and with the intention of then taking over the school when leadership of the school when she, was getting close to retiring and moving on. So I was teaching and leading that school for 4 years. And at that point, we had first through 12th grade students in mixed age classrooms, a staff of about 7. Um, I had a class of, my biggest, I had a class of 25 students with me, first through 12th grade. We had about 60 total students between 3 classrooms. And I loved it. I loved everything about it. I began seeing kids really being transformed. I began seeing parents and moms, especially, starting to have hope for their kids. And it was just a really incredible and sweet time of my life. There was some leadership change, and then I decided to step back from that position in May of this past year. And during that time, I had started working with the National Microschooling Center because I didn't know what our school was in Indiana. I didn't know who else was doing it. And so in June of 23, I kind of started Googling like modern one-room schoolhouse question mark? Like, what is this thing that we're doing, you know? And I came across organizations like the Vela Education Fund and the National Microschooling Center and started reaching out, just being like, hey, I'm doing this weird thing here. We got a bunch of kids. I don't even know, what are we doing? And so started just really making connections that way. And didn't know it at the time, but started really looking for other schools in Indiana who were doing similar things. And at that point, we knew of maybe about 5 in Indiana. And so I was like, you know what? By golly, we need more of these things in Indiana. And so I just started being annoying and being the squeaky wheel. And, you know, a few years later, now, when I stepped back from my micro school, I was like, well, I got to have a job. So I called the National Microschooling Center. I was like, hey, want to hire me? And they were like, yes, yes, we do. So I've been working full time with them. Half of my time is focused nationally, and half of my time is focused in Indiana. And right now in Indiana, we've built the network to about 130 microschools here in Indiana, serving, I'm estimating, about 2,000 kids across the state, which is really incredible. I also had no intention of starting my own micro school. I thought, this work is plenty and it's paying the bills and I'm doing fine and I love it. Um, so we had put my oldest graduated, we had put my two other kids into another micro school and it just wasn't a super great fit for us. So I decided to bring them home starting in January, right after Christmas break, and I was just going to homeschool them again. Well, then word got out that I was going to homeschool my kids, and I started getting phone calls. Well, if you're going to homeschool, your two, would you homeschool mine too? And I was like, sure. So what started with two, then turned into five, then turned into eight, now is 11, and a
Wow.
staff of three, and a commercial space that we'll be starting in. Actually, today is my first day I take possession. But so I went, well, okay, I guess I have a micro school again. I'm sitting in my schoolroom right now. This is my
Wow, it's
classroom
beautiful.
of 11 middle school and high school kids, and here we are doing things.
Yes. Absolutely loved hearing your story, your journey, how you got into micro schooling. Just because sometimes I just really liked how in your story you kind of show like you can make your own choices and your own decisions, right? When you figured out, public school wasn't working, you started to homeschool. And even when you were homeschooling you was like, not with the last child, your youngest, you made a decision to put your child into micro schooling. That's a
Yeah.
part of homeschooling, you know?
Yep. Yep.
A lot of parents don't understand that, right? That it's very flexible.
Yep.
Can you go into maybe a little bit more about like what is micro schooling
Yeah.
and like the benefits of it?
Yeah. Microschooling is kind of whatever you want it to be. There's not really a set definition for what it is. The National Microschooling Center defines it as a small, innovative learning environment serving more than one family. A lot of micro schools nationally operate under kind of the homeschool umbrella, and they're just providing non-traditional education. Most of them are kind of the modern one-room schoolhouse, mixed age classrooms, a handful of kids. There's not a set number that micro schools can serve. There are some micro schools that serve, 300 students, but that might be first through 12th grade, So when you think about that wide of a range of kids, 300 isn't that many. Um, Usually they're some sort of private pay or ESA is usually sometimes the only public funding that micro schools can accept. But really, I mean, I kind of describe my micro school basically as homeschooling on steroids. It was a seamless transition from homeschooling to microschooling because we're just used to learning in those ways. There's complete flexibility. Microschool leaders are really kind of building microschools out of the needs of the community. And so, there's usually a demographic of students who are falling through the cracks in traditional environments. And rather than waiting for somebody to fix it, microschool leaders are just saying, hey, I see the need, I'm going to fix it. Um, so it's just a really unique, flexible approach to education to serve students that need another way of learning.
Because I want to just go back really quick to your
Yeah.
homeschooling journey, because I'm a homeschooling parent as well. And
Yeah.
and it was so funny. I was thinking, like, when my daughter turns 8, I might put her in a micro school. And at first, I felt a little bad because I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to like homeschool and like keep her, like I'm supposed to be her teacher and keep her, here. And I'm supposed to, and I had to like release that. And I wanted to know, like, how did you come to that conclusion? And well, yeah, like what did that look like for you from going from homeschooling to micro schooling?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I have three kids. My oldest right now is 19, my daughter is 16, and my youngest son is 13. And my two older kids they're easy students. My daughter struggles in math, but not anything, super profoundly. Um, they pretty compliant in terms of like they would sit down and do their schoolwork and not necessarily fight me a whole lot. And we really just kind of enjoyed the family style learning, learning things together. My youngest son, however, is unique. And so when he turned 7, which is a compulsory age here in Indiana, he's my baby after a loss. So between my daughter and him, we had an infant son that passed away from congenital heart defect, and his name was Joshua. And between Joshua and my youngest son, Luke, 15 months apart. And he was kind of my baby that, healed some broken places in my heart. And he's the baby, he's the last one. And so I get accused frequently of, babying him.
Bullying him, yeah.
Guilty.
Oh, it's nothing wrong
He's
with
my
that.
baby.
Listen,
He's my baby.
right.
But he is also my Spitfire. Like he is my redheaded. Oh, phew. He is a handful. He's always been a handful. And when it came down to learning, he did not learn like my other kids. And I would let him manipulate me into not doing school and, all of those things. But I knew that I was doing him a disservice. And so I needed to find something to get him out from under me to see, because I was like, okay, there's either something going on here or I just really let this kid do whatever he wants. And I figured it maybe was a combination of both. Turns out he's profoundly dyslexic and ADHD. And my other two are, typical learners. He's not. And so for him, I knew that we needed to do something. I didn't quite know what it was. And so getting him out from under me was kind of the first step to see, okay, is it me that's letting him get away with everything? Some of it was yes. Is there more to it that, what's going on? He had, from the time he was 5 months old, he had multiple ear infections. So he had multiple sets of tubes. I didn't know he had some hearing loss with that. I didn't know if that was part of it. He's also my rough and tumble boy, and he had multiple concussions growing up, from falling off of bleachers and falling out of trees and, all of those things. And so I didn't know if there was something there with some brain injury going on. But I kind of just needed to like eliminate the first things that I could. And he started making some progress with the former microschool teacher, but not a ton. And so then once we kind of started eliminating those things, we were able to really think, okay, there is something actually going on here. We hired tutors and he still wasn't making progress. So then we got him evaluated, and sure enough, learning disability. So each kid is unique. And, I was doing a good job with the other two. And it's not that I was doing a poor job with the youngest. He just needed something different. And part of homeschooling is knowing your kids' unique needs and being okay with saying, you know what, I actually can't give them that. So I'm going to outsource it, but I'm going to outsource it in a way that agrees with our lifestyle and agrees with our philosophy, agrees with our beliefs, and utilizing the resources around us so that our kids can get the things that they need when we just can't provide it for them.
I really love that. I'm so like just very intrigued on how you made that decision, because I've talked to some parents and they're just so like, maybe stuck in between like, do I outsource? Do I just keep
Yeah.
going? And I just really loved how you were like, no, I cannot do this. It's okay if I cannot do this. We need to find different solutions. And like you said, homeschooling gives you that flexibility to do that. Oh my God, that is just, you made me like, you really inspired me on my journey, because now it just makes me feel like, okay, like if I don't want to do this, it's okay. Like I don't have to put all that pressure on myself.
Yes. Well, and our kids are unique and we're unique. We're not gifted in all things, right? And that's why living in community and having access to other opportunities is so valuable, because we can't do it alone. I knew very quickly, and I'm not so arrogant to say that like I could not teach this kid how to read. Um, and that wasn't a failure on my part, and it wasn't a failure on his part. It's just a different way of approaching his education, and it's okay. It's okay.
So now I would love to get into your venture. So I met Jill you all through 4.0. I have
Yeah.
been interviewing a lot of founders through 4.0 and getting connected with my community, with my cohort. And so I would love for you to talk about your venture, your micro school that you're starting. How is it like what is your model?
Yeah, my model is really it's a faith-based environment. It's focusing on individualized learning. And I mean, honestly, again, I wasn't planning on starting a micro school, you know. It was just kind of out of the need of the community. And I focus a lot on individualized instruction. I am my micro school, Kainos Microschool, is fifth through 12th grade. I was very intentional in choosing fifth through 12th grade because I didn't want to teach those babies how to read. That's a huge responsibility. I just didn't want to do it. It's not my favorite thing to do, and it's just not something that I wanted to do. And also in our community, we have a ton of elementary age co-ops, hybrid programs, micro schools. And there's starting to pop up some middle school and high school options, but a lot of them are really niche. Most of them are classical approach to education. And I was just really seeing a need for those older students that wasn't necessarily a classical approach. Classical is great, but it's not for all students. And I I don't I love the older kids. So I wanted to create a space that would be super flexible. It could serve, you know, below average learners, average learners to gifted learners, and really allow students to work at their own pace and at their own level. When I applied for 4.0, I had kind of had an inkling that I was moving towards the micro school option. I was going to have three students, my own two and another one. And I thought, well, you know, the fellowship could then give me the opportunity to kind of figure out what this micro school will look like for the fall. And it spiraled way too quickly. So by the time the fellowship came around, I was like, oh, I actually have a micro school now. Um, so out of the 11 students that I currently have, we're 8:30 to noon, Monday through Friday. Next year will be full day. I
Mm,
don't have any two kids working at the same pace, at the same level, in the same thing.
mm,
I have fourth through 12th grade. My teacher's youngest son is in fourth grade. And really, the teachers, myself and my teacher, are acting more as like facilitator and guide. So kids are working through a checklist of their work. We're helping them prioritize what needs to be done. And they're just kind of knocking their work out. They can't move on without making corrections and things like that. So they're mastering what they're learning. But really with the 4.0 fellowship, I wanted to kind of explore the project-based learning approach. That's something that I've not done a whole lot with. And considering that we'll be full-time, full day next year, I was like, well, I think we need to learn a bit about some project-based learning and how we could implement that in our afternoons. Our mornings are highly structured, kids are sitting at their desks working independently, but by about 11:30, they're pooped out, and they're ready for something else. So um, I've been using the 4.0 fellowship to kind of figure out what does project-based learning look like in our school, and then how can we kind of translate that, do a piece of project-based learning, but then also translate that into some self-directed learning where kids are exploring their passions and their interests and creating a project out of that. So kind of a mix between those two. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what we've been doing. Right now I have a whole, I'm like looking around the room thinking my one, two, three, four, five, six middle school boys who are all mostly profoundly dyslexic and ADHD.
mm.
So half of them, and then the others are high school kids, some with some learning needs and some who are, you know, traditional learners. But They're all allowed to work at their own pace, at their own level. We really focus on time management, all those executive functioning skills, time management, prioritizing. And they love those stinking checklists. They work from checklists every day and they just love checking those boxes off and getting their work
Really?
done. And yeah, it's pretty great. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you go into a little bit more about what individualized planning is?
Yeah.
Just for parents to understand.
Yeah. I mean, so when we have new students that come to us, I will sit down with them and I'll assess them. I utilize a lot of homeschool curriculum, so it's super easy for me to kind of place them in curriculum that will fit their learning style, their learning needs, and then put them at a level that's appropriate for them. And because they're operating at a level that's appropriate for them, they can do it mostly independently. That was the other reason why I want to do fifth through 12th grade, because it's not appropriate for a first grade baby to sit there and learn independently. They need to be taught. Fifth through 12th grade, they're pretty independent. Um, so I'll place kids in curriculum based on their learning styles, their needs, and their level, and then they progress at their own pace. I have some kids that fly through, pre-algebra in a semester. I have some kids that take 2 years on pre-algebra. Because we're a non-accredited private school in Indiana, we really are flexible in our approach, and we can do whatever we need to do to meet the needs of students. We customize the graduation pathways. Um, we can kind of figure out, if they need an alternative way of grading, all of that. So it's really individualized, based on each individual child's needs.
Wow, that is very, and I love that because, like you said, it allows a child to go on their own pace. Like how fast you want to go through a curriculum, how
Yep.
slow you want to go through a curriculum. I can't even get it out.
Yep.
But also like just learning at your own pace. It doesn't have to be rushed. So I think that
Yep.
that's so beautiful. Do
Yeah.
you mind just telling, like, maybe giving some advice to any micro school leaders out there, like anyone who is thinking about starting a micro school? Maybe they're in the thick of it and they
Yeah.
just need some advice. What would you give them?
Yeah. Um, I mean, so I work nationally with microschools that are getting up and launched. I mean, hundreds of microschools that I've worked with the leaders and helping them in every stage of leading their microschool. And I think the biggest thing, and this was part of the former microschool, part of why I left is you've really got to set it up right to begin with. You've got to have a plan for growth or not. And if you don't want to grow, that's totally fine. But you've got to have a plan. You've got to make sure that you've got the back end of the business set up correctly. I am not an entrepreneur, but I am now.
Right.
And I had no idea what I was doing. My microschool is an LLC. I have no desire for it to be a 501(c)(3) or nonprofit, because I want the full control of the school, without a board. And yet I had no idea what I was doing with the LLC. And so I had to get plugged into organizations, even though I work with them, the National Microschooling Center, to be like, hey, I'm thinking about this. How do I do it? I got involved with my local community. We have a really great, it's called the Northeast Indiana Innovation Center, and they work with entrepreneurs all across the city to get them up and started. And I utilized every stinking resource I possibly could at the NIC is what it's called. Um, I got a mentor. I attended every class that I possibly can, because I need to learn. I need to know how to run a business in addition to the teaching. And honestly, math is not my strong suit. I did not want to take the deep dive to throw myself into the deep end to figure out the accounting and the bookkeeping. I had no
Mhm.
desire.
Mhm.
And so I pay a bookkeeper and I pay her a lot of money. And you know what? She's a contractor. She's not even an employee of mine. But I actually, when I talk with her, I refer to the bank account as our bank account because I couldn't do this thing without her.
Mhm.
Um, and I was struggling with giving myself the freedom to spend the money on a bookkeeper. And talking with my mentor, she was like, no, that's the wisest thing you can do because it took the burden off of you and you're able to focus elsewhere, knowing that that piece is taken care of. So I think even if you're considering, launching a microschool, you don't have to be all things. Just like I was with my kids in homeschooling, I knew that I could not teach my profoundly dyslexic son how to read. And I had to outsource it, and I had to be okay with that. That was something that I just could not do, and I was okay with that. And so again, here, I paid a CPA to help me figure out the employment paperwork, because I did not want to figure that out, and I didn't want to pay the fines, if I didn't file it correctly. So being okay with knowing what we or not knowing what we don't know and asking for help is probably the biggest thing. The other thing would be access as many resources as you can. Get a hold of places like the National Microschooling Center and get plugged into the microschooling community. Across the nation, they're estimating that I think it's 1.1 to 2.1 million children are in microschools full time across the nation. This is a growing movement. Tap into it. All the Facebook groups, all the conferences, attend, get involved. You're going to find your people there. This work is lonely and it's hard, but you don't have to do it alone. And you might not find somebody who's doing it exactly like you are, but you're going to find somebody who understands. So that piece of community is super, super valuable as well.
To end our conversation, I loved everything that you said. I'm just really enjoying this because for me, like I'm on the path where I'm kind of stuck in between. Should I start a micro school? Like I feel like parents want me to, and they are, looking for it. But for me, I'm just like, do I really want to like do all this work? I'm just being honest. Like, do I really want to do all this work?
Fun. Yeah.
um, but the more that I hear, your story, and the more that continue to talk to people, I'm just like, maybe this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I just gotta like not fight it and force it, and just move through it. Just like you said, find the resources, keep going. Like it's rough, it's tough, but you'll get to the end goal.
Yes. And I'll tell you, like, I, full transparency, I mean, I see a therapist once a week. Mental health is super important. And for the longest time, when I left my former micro school, she was like, "You're going to start a new micro school." And I'm like, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not." And I mean, about 8 months. And she finally, one day I went to my therapy session and I was like, "All right, I'm doing it." And she said that, like, the minute that I had walked in the door, she didn't know that I was starting it, but the minute I walked in the door, my whole demeanor had changed. And she's like, "Oh, there's something going on." And it was just like this free feeling. And I had been fighting, I feel like, what the Lord had been calling me to do. Um,
Mm,
start a school. And as soon as I kind of, submitted and was like, "Okay, I'm gonna do this," it was like a whole different burden lifted from me. And I'll tell you what, it's been hard. It's been hard. It's been really expensive. So
mm,
expensive. Um, but the community has come alongside me. I mean, I just received a $20,000 donation of furniture. A school family donated, the dad owns a construction company, and they went and drywalled my entire new building. The community has just been so supportive of it. And it's kind of a testament to the need of it. That if I'm willing to do the work, they're going to come alongside and they're going to support it. So, yes, do it. Do
I
it.
need to hear that. Listen, I'm glad that you told that to me. You shared that with me because that's how I feel. I feel like I'm just fighting it. And as soon as I just lean into and surrender to, like, yes, I'm going to do this,
Yep.
it will work out and I will feel more like I just feel better about it instead of fighting
Yeah.
against it.
Yep. Yep.
Wow, thank you so much, Jill. I'm
Yeah.
just so inspired. Like I really am so inspired right now. I'm
Oh,
just,
thank you.
elated about where you're going, how your journey started and where you're at now. We have to I know we're recording, but after this I would love to talk to you or maybe set up another
Yeah,
meeting so we can talk more about
absolutely.
my micro school. Cause look, I'm
Yeah.
starting, Jill. I'm starting in it. I'm starting it. I'm leaning into it. You have inspired me to just move forward. So thank you for your time, your energy. I
Yeah.
really appreciate you joining me on Daily Conversations. You all out there, don't forget to like and subscribe. How can they find you, Jill?
You can find me, oh gosh, so many places. You can find me at the National Microschooling Center, which is microschooling, oh gosh, hold on. Microschoolingcenter.org. You can find me at microschooling.in.org, microschoolingindiana.org. You can also find me on my website for my microschool, which is Kainos, Kainos, microschool.com. And you can email me at jill@microschoolingcenter.org as well.
Awesome. You all check Jill out. Check out her micro school in Indiana. Check out her website. Anything if you are interested in microschooling, if you're in Indiana, if you just want to get, if you want to start a micro school, you can reach out to Jill. So thank you for joining us again. You all don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next episode. Peace.